Any other questions before? Yeah. Break? No. Oh, go. Well, for those of you on Slack, just come up and get it. The reason why I say no to a break is it's like a train that's moving really fast. I mean, you used to ride bicycles before your bike got stolen. So imagine you're going uphill, so you create this momentum, and then you're going up, and it's easy. And then all of a sudden, someone says, hey, and you stop. And then you realize it's a loser. You say, God damn it, I stopped for this loser. And now you say, screw it. No, you're just being stupid. It depends where you're going and how you're going. I think if, for example, you're having a conversation with some idiot, but you're enjoying it, and all of a sudden you catch yourself because the idiot has turned you into an idiot, it's best to just kind of stop and just walk away and delete his number from your cell phone. Anyone else? Yeah. Hurry up, man.
What is humor and why do you laugh?
I don't know. It's a release valve in some cases. Anyone else? No one? Okay. Yeah.
Does it have other students besides 3?
We never really talked about this stuff because we were just friends, and that's how we define things. There was one, I think, in the 10 years of spending time with him where someone did something and he said, you have a teacher and yet you did A, B, C, D. Don't do that again. That was it. He had a lot of friends, and he had a lot of people who loved him. He was also, in the personality typology, he was a number 8. He was big, he was bossy, he was blunt, and if he sat on you, you would die. He was a big man. I don't know if he had any other students. All I know is that the 3 of us, Hussein, Mehrdad, and myself, were with him constantly. There were some other people, but the consequences of doing things halfway. So there was my mother's nephew, I think, Hussein, the other Hussein. He was about almost 40 when he met Hussein. He was married and had a daughter. So he already had a life. Okay. And his life was going this direction. Just to tell you the dangerousness of this stuff. He meets Hussein, and they meet at a casino in Reno. Hussein had just moved to Sacramento. He had heard a few things about Reno, so he goes up there and runs into Hussein. Where do you live? Sacramento. Oh, I live in Sacramento too. We have gatherings, we have a shop there. So Hussein goes and visits Hussein in his shop. He invites him. Then you have a gathering. Hussein is sitting in this gathering where Hussein is talking. Are you getting confused with all these Husseins? Okay, so Hossein the T, as in teacher, and Hossein the S, or maybe S, as a student. So Hossein the S is sitting and listening. And all of a sudden, Hossein the S begins to feel something, you know? And so he waits and waits and waits. It's like 2 a.m. You know, I've been at the car wash all day. And every time Hossein says, well, if there are no other questions, let's just go home. I mean, let's go, you guys go home. And then Hossein says, I have a question. I have a question. It's like Joaquin, how he used to be. I have a question. I have a question. And it's like 4 a.m. I look at Hossein and I want to like kill him. You know? And then as we're driving home, I said, Hossein, what is wrong with you, man? It's like 4 a.m. I got to wake up in like 2 hours. He says, as we were sitting and as Hossein the T was talking, I felt something. And so Hossein the S sees him on a daily basis. And all of a sudden, the course of his life changes. He worked for Pac Bell, and he made lots of money. And he begins to read constantly, voraciously. And when he had temperature of 198, he decided to like pour some concrete in his backyard. He was consumed by these ideas. But here's the thing. His wife was a shopaholic, and he had trained his kids the wrong way. So when he got really mature in the world of ideas, he couldn't transmit and transfer these ideas to his wife. They wouldn't listen. And then what happened is eventually he stopped showing up to gatherings because his life did not support the ideas. And then you have to make a choice. You can't love 2 masters. And Hossein is very traditional, Hossein the Ass. Very traditional, very loyal. So he chose his wife and his kids. There were talks about him maybe walking away from the family, but the guilt and the shame that he felt was just too much. He stuck with them. They have a 2-story, 5-bedroom house. He has lived in 1 room for the past 20 years. Doesn't talk to anyone. He has lost his eyesight for the most part. He's been depressed because this is his soul and this is his physical life, and they're not compatible. And so for the past 20 years, every time, and I don't see him very often, but every time you run into him or you see him, so Hossein, how you doing? I've been praying for death for the past 30 years. It's just not coming my way. You know. And now you laugh, but he genuinely means it. Because there is no remedy. You can't fix your wife, you can't fix your kid, you can't fix your life. And you no longer have the passion to go see Hossein, you no longer have the passion or the energy. As you get older, you just lose abilities. And so you just sit in your room and you lay in a bed and there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to go. And there are no friends to talk to. And as you get old, what happens is your body begins to kind of just depreciate. So you no longer say, well, let me read you a poem from Rumi. You say, you know, I had a colonoscopy. And all of a sudden your conversation becomes, you know, about the frailty of your physical life and how it's slowly falling apart. So whatever the hell you want to do, you got to do it when you're young. And whatever blessings you have, like the Beatitudes you talked about last night, if somehow you can overcome the fear, if somehow you can nourish the excitement into interest into obsession into infatuation and love, your life will take a different direction. The younger you are, what happens is you will choose things about your life to kind of accommodate things that live inside you. The other guy, Mehrdad, before we had met Hussein, he got this woman pregnant. Her father was a sheriff and told him, if you don't marry my daughter, I will shoot you. And he would have. And so they married. But she was at a different culture. He became interested in the stuff, but she didn't really care. And then one day he comes to the gathering and looks at Hussein and says, she's pregnant. Hussein shakes his head. Says, you idiot. How many times did I tell you? Don't have any more babies. He said, I'm sorry, it just happened. It just happened, huh? He says, okay, I forgive you, but no more children. A couple years pass by, and he sits and looks at it. I'm very, very sorry. What happened now? She's pregnant. What? You idiot! He stands up, pacing back and forth. And children, they require money. What are you going to do? Teach? How are you going to feed 5 kids? And so he gets a job at the state in Sacramento. He's very high position. And his kids were my brother's students. They were taking computer science classes. And so my brother asked, so how's your dad? Oh, he's depressed. The point I'm trying to make is, should any of you be interested in anything, whether it's philosophy or music or cooking, if, for example, your passion is cooking and you like to cook and you like to eat, or maybe you like to bake, make sure your companion is not diabetic. Because then you would be miserable baking cookies, but no one's going to eat them. If you like cooking and you like meaty stuff, don't marry a goddamn vegan. They'll destroy your life, make you feel bad for butchering a cow on a daily basis. So whatever you're passionate about, and that passion is going to kind of guide you for the rest of your life, make sure your friends, your companion, fall on the same line. Or at least they understand, or at least they support you. As we say in Persian, if you can't support me, at least don't be a hindrance. I know you're diabetic, I love cooking, just let me cook and then trash them. So, yeah.
What is the cause of your career person or just after?
When this is done, I'm going to go to Great America. I'm just kidding. I don't know, my family is coming over, so I got to go vacuum the house and clean the backyard and, remove the dog poop and what. Yeah. So. Yeah.
What was the happiest moment?
I've never had any. I'm just kidding. About 90% of human emotions are negative. We don't usually talk about our happy moments. We have them, but most of our gossips really revolve around our difficulties, frustrations, regrets. And I think because there are a couple of things. First, it depends on your temperament. If your temperament is a number 4, an introvert, introverts are funny people because it doesn't matter what you give them. It doesn't matter what you tell them. They're always missing something. It's the cause of their misery, It's something that someone like Jesus had. It's something someone like Lao Tzu had. Maybe the Buddha to some extent. So introverts have a tendency of always being withdrawn and being inward. Things on the outside don't make them too happy. It doesn't mean that they're not going to hang on to political movements or social movements. They do, but at the end of the day, there is this honesty about them that they realize that they're just doing this because they want to hang on to something, as a form of distraction. And because I think, my experience, and I can't talk about other people, because my experience with philosophy and ideas for the most part, been very dark. And that's, to some extent, has to do with my culture. The richer the culture, the older the culture, it means it has suffered a good amount of traumas. You have volcanoes, you have earthquakes, you have war, you have famine. That's what happens when you're old. When you're old, you've experienced young age, you've experienced being youthful. You've also experienced the feebleness of your body. And then what you realize is that your happiness, your joy stays with you for one day, by old age and misery stays with you for 100 years. And so you have one page that you write about joy, but you write 1,000 pages about darkness. The thing you need to understand about reflection, about the world of ideas, is that you don't think when you're having a good time. Reflection puts a space between you and life, because you figure out that there is a glitch in the system. It's a puzzle. You want to understand it, and you don't understand it. And not understanding creates this frustration. You want to understand why your boyfriend, if you have a companion, you're never going to think about your relationship when you guys are holding hands and having a great time. But the moment he just comes home in a bad mood, or you come home in a bad mood, or maybe you're on your cycle and all of a sudden you become introverted, you kind of look at this relationship in a different way. You begin to think about it a different way. And all of a sudden you realize this reflection injects a good amount of darkness. And maybe the two of you sit and talk about the darkness in a wonderful way. And the darkness becomes a moment to celebrate. It has richness to it. It has depth to it. So my experience of ideas is that first, you're born in a culture that is profoundly religious, and by default, religious ideas will tell you you're just a scumbag. And then you're also born in the Middle East, where people tell you amount to nothing. And no matter what you do in life, you will never be happy. It's not like here. Go to school, get your PhD, but know that you're nothing. Get married, but you won't be happy. Have children, but you won't be happy. So that's the cradle in which you're born and raised. And then that's the cultural aspect of it. The social aspect is you're in a third world country. You want to get a loaf of bread, 5 hours. Your parents want to make you kebab, but you have to wake up at 3 a.m, go stand in a goddamn line until the shop opens at 7. And when you go there at 3 a.m, you stand before 500 people. By the time it's your turn, there's no more meat left. So everything is frustrating. You have the second biggest oil reservoirs on this planet, and yet there are no gas stations. If you want to fill your tank with some gas, stand in line for about 5 hours. Nothing is easy. And when nothing is easy, you don't have a philosophy of happiness. You don't create Michael Jacksons. You don't create Beyoncés. All of your music, all of your art is sad. And then you become perhaps a bit more interested in not so much political ideas, social ideas, cultural ideas, but philosophical ideas. Well, who are the philosophers you're going to read? Well, philosophers who feel alienated, exploited, that for some strange reason, it's kind of like the German poet Novalis, that philosophy is homesickness. That these people sit somewhere, they think thoughts, how can I make life more enjoyable? How can I make life more livable? Now, the trick is, since 90% of life is filled with frustration and disappointment, can you be creative enough, artistic enough to find joy in misery? Look, you can cure your father. If he's got stage 4 cancer, you can be angry, you can be sad, but the best way you deal with it is you take him to Kaiser. You wait until his chemotherapy is over. You drive him home. Maybe you stop by In-N-Out. You get him some fries. Maybe you go to Costco. You get him some tiramisu. Then you come home. Maybe you bathe him. I mean, all of a sudden you realize, since these are going to be the last few days, you want to suck the marrow out of this. And then what will happen, interestingly enough, is that the person that you have loved and cared for, who has ultimately become a victim to cancer, it becomes the Peter of your life. Everywhere you go, you talk about this experience. When you have kids and they grow up, you tell them about their grandfather. And you have to sit back and say, how is that possible? One of the saddest episodes in my life is the thing I talk about the most. Because in sadness, you feel yourself coming to life. You feel. You just don't think. You feel. And you feel for something you love, and that's your father. So, yeah. So since we have only a few minutes, any other questions before I, yes?
How would you redeveloping love as a plane compared to a smaller in relationship, in our endeavors, and also rekindling or just keeping the flame? We seek wisdom. We seek wisdom when we come to us, regardless if it's a teacher or a professor.
Well, your first question had to do with how do you rekindle love in a romantic relationship? Well, you shouldn't be in a relationship because of love. Look, what is it that we want? We want stability. Love is the most unstable emotion you will ever encounter. It's like a tornado. It takes you up, pushes you down, or throws you down. You just get bruised up. If you look at human history for the past many, many thousands of years, we have always been looking for security. It's only in recent times where we are privileged enough to say, no, I have options. Not to marry Joe because he's got 5 camels. I want to marry Joe because I love him. Okay? Perhaps a more intelligent and insightful way to approach this is the following. Life throws you here and there. There is only one real stability. At least it used to be. You can't depend on your politicians or society. You can depend on nature because at any time things could turn upside down. Why not just create an institution we call marriage? Commit. Good times, bad times, you're loyal. It's the only stability we have found so far. At least it used to be. You marry someone because they are solid. They have a job. They have a house. They are educated. You marry someone who's emotionally stable. And then what happens when you are with such a person, and we are interesting animals. It doesn't matter who you're with, how attractive or unattractive they are. They will grow on you. Yeah. Frida's parents, they had a horrible relationship. And when Frida's mother died, she asked her father, so Dad, what do you miss about Mom? I know you didn't love her, but what do you miss about her? Oh man, I miss the fightings. And the point is, fighting is not fun in relationships. Conflict is not fun. But you just kind of get, it's Charles Darwin. Things grow on you. You adapt. So yeah, find someone who's solid. And The thing about teachers is that they have found something that's a lifelong pursuit for them. That makes them solid. They're never going to change. It doesn't mean they're not going to slip. It doesn't mean they're not going to fall. It doesn't mean they're not going to make mistakes. But they're never going to forget their aim. Yeah. Yeah, Julian?
How do you say that is?
Oh, no one knows that. I don't know. No, he just went somewhere, listened to someone, became inspired and followed. And his teacher came here. He sold everything, came here, only to realize his teacher was dead. And that's it. We don't really know what makes a teacher a teacher. A teacher is not really for everyone. It's not like you can go on a stage and the audience, all of a sudden, they're all your students. It doesn't work that way. I think anything that has value and depth, there is something about them that they become very protective on who and what they are. They're not going to give themselves easily to just anyone. And I don't really know how it works. You know, imagine like wisdom being, I don't know, Michael Jordan. Can you practice and then become Michael Jordan? Maybe, but there's a good chance that you won't. You know, can you practice and be a Muhammad Ali? Probably not. Mike Tyson? Probably not. Floyd Mayweather? Probably not. It doesn't mean that, you know, you're not going to get a degree and come to class and talk. It just means you just won't be a Socrates. If your question is, well, how does one make a Socrates? I don't know. Anyone else? All right, let me, yes? Let me hear, yeah. You know anything? Good. Let me give you some poetry, and then we'll call it quits. It won't take very long. Since this is our last night, they can stay here till about 10. This comes from the first book of Rumi, Masnavi. I'll first give it to you in Persian. Then I'll do my best to translate it and hopefully bring out the spirit. Let me also mention, since I've been talking about Rumi, that the last maybe 5 to 7 years of his life, he didn't write. He couldn't write. Like inspiration had left him completely. And he was just like a corpse. He was depressed, sad, lonely. So yeah, okay. You sure you don't have any questions? Oh, thank you.
Is that the fate of a writer, that you're just gonna depressed as you go along?
Well, you get, I think, depressed for a variety of different reasons. You know, Nietzsche became a professor, I think, of language, if I'm not mistaken, or something, at the age of 24. Unheard of. But he got sick. And a few years later, he had to kind of resign. And then a few years later after that, he went mad. Imagine for a moment that, you know, you fall in love with philosophy or ideas, and you get your degrees, and then you have a job where you go in front of the classroom and talk, and all of a sudden you realize you can't see too well. In losing abilities, any ability, because you have a relationship with your eyes. Your eyes help you see. Your eyes bring the world inside you. You have a relationship because of your eyesight. And then you lose that. That's a great loss, you know. And you can't but be sorrowful when you lose something as powerful as your eyesight, as powerful as your body. It's something that Sigmund Freud talked about, which is, one of these days you're going to realize that your most faithful companion, which is your physical body, will revolt. You will have a fresh mind, and your mind will say, go to Costco, for example, see Norma and say hello to her. But your back will say, no, I'm not going to let you go anywhere. And then you say, well, maybe I just can go to the fridge. But your back says, no, you're not going to go to the fridge either. And then you go to pick up the phone and call someone to bring you some food. But now you realize you can't really see too well. And you have great reasons to be sad and sorrowful. So no one who grows old, I think on the inside, for those who are a bit more reserved and have perhaps a good amount of self-respect, or maybe the capacity, they keep their sorrows to themselves. But those, kind of like what Betty Davis said many, many years ago, old age is not for sissies, because you begin to lose things. You have no more students, you can't write anymore. There is no one out there who inspires you, and that's one of the tragedies of life. Right now, what is a Garden of Eden for many of us in this classroom is you can go out there and the world things out there can sell you things. It can create desires and ambitions and pursuits. You don't have to work hard. Just go out there. Just go online, go to Amazon. Go to any of these sites that sell things. And eventually, after 5-6 hours, you will find out that you're buying like $200, $300, $400 worth of stuff. But to be expelled from all of that, where you have to do your own work, that you no longer desire to be defined by things on the outside. You don't want to read books, you want to write books. But you don't want to write books on Plato. You want to write books about your own ideas, your own passions. And the tragedy is now you have to put your feelings, not what Plato felt, your feelings. And that's exhausting, because now the expulsion was very, very true. The Garden of Eden gives you maps, places you can go. Once expelled, you got to find where you want to go. You have lost respect for books. You have lost respect for people. You no longer go to teachers. Because what any teacher will do, really, is to break you, to make you reflective, and make sure that brokenness and reflection never disappear from your life. It doesn't mean that you won't forget for a few minutes, but for the most part, it's there inside you. And because now you know how books come about. How do books come about? People sit, people think, people feel, people observe, and they write. Now, you're in that position. You're able to look, observe, see, process, digest, understand, and then express that understanding. How do you do it? Well, you write. And so when someone says, there's an interesting book, I say, fuck that, I'm not going to read that book. I know how books come about. You want me what? Read Gay Science because Nietzsche wrote it? No. I know what love is. I know what Sophia is. I know what depression is. I know what it means to be gay in an environment where gayness is bashed. I know loneliness. I know what it means to be an introvert. I have all the inner components that Nietzsche had. I'm not going to read his book. I'm going to observe my own times. But before you get to this place, you need to read a lot of books, because you need to become familiar with the vocabulary. Okay. Maybe I'll just say it to you in Persian, and then we'll go home without translating, and then we can eat a little. بشنو از نی چون حکایت می کند و از جدایی ها شکایت می کند که از نیستان تا مرا ببریدند در نفیرم مرد و زن نالیدند سینه خواهم شرح از فراق تا بگویم شرح درد اشتیاق من به هر جمعیتی نالان شدم جفت خوشحالان و بدحالان شدم هر کسی از زن خود شد یار من و از درون من نجست اسرار من. آتش است این بانگ نای و نیست باد، هر که این آتش ندارد نیست باد. It's a few lines. So let me just very quickly translate them for you. Hear from this reed flute as it wants to tell you a story. Reed flutes are interesting. When they grow, their interior is solid. As they mature, their interior becomes hollow. And then someone cuts them from the reed bed and then takes them to their garage, drills some holes, and then breathes air into them. And all of a sudden, the sound comes out. Bishna az nechun hekayat mikonad. Listen to this air that's coming out of this reed flute. There is a beautiful, sad story in it. What's the story? Az judai ha shikayat mikonad. That this reed flute used to belong to a community of reeds. But at some point, someone went to this place with an axe or a special knife and cut this reed and brought it to his garage and made it into something that it never was. The reed wanted to be with other reeds, but it got expelled. It's really our story and our expulsion from the Garden of Eden, or whatever that makes life worth living. که از نیستان تا مرا ببریده اند در نفیرم مرد و زن نالیده اند. That every single one of us in this classroom have this space inside us that's hollow, that's empty, that's made of absolute nothingness. So when sometimes you wake up and you're in a sorrowful mood, when you're sad, when you're depressed, when you feel lonely, when you feel poor, even though your life is quite rich on the outside, what your poverty is really is because something about you says, I was cut from a community. I don't know what this community is. I don't know where this community is. All I know is that I am sad and I feel lonely and I feel alone and I feel alienated and I have no idea why. And what the reed flute is saying is every human being that you see out there, whatever it is that they're pursuing because they want to go back home. But because they don't know what back home is and where it is, they have no choice but to assume that it's the boyfriend, it's the girlfriend, it's the movies, it's the degrees, it's justice. It's none of those things. You do everything because of the hollowness, of the emptiness, of the nothingness that lives inside you. And you have no choice but to fill it with some goddamn thing out there. سینه خواهم شرح از فراق. This reed flute, whenever you wake up and you have this unique sorrow inside you, you are this reed flute. And what is it that you want to do? You want to express your sadness. It's not because of your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your poverty on the outside. Something about your interior nags on you, tags on you, says, what is wrong with you? And you want to express it. And whenever this nothingness comes to the surface, your heart is not just broken, it's shattered into 1,000 pieces. And this is what the reed flute's message is. That when you hear the sound of this reed flute, you need to understand, it doesn't make this noise for you to sing, to dance, to be reflective. It's not about that. Reed flute is crying because the reed flute says, I was cut off from my community, from my world. My heart is shattered into 1,001 pieces. Is your heart shattered enough to understand my laments, my cries? So for those of you who find yourself broken for any reason, do not speak to people who are not broken. They will not understand you. They will make you feel more crappy. Find people who are broken. They put themselves back together, but they have never forgotten their own brokenness and how it feels to be broken. Hang out with the right people, those who have been broken by life, and understand the anatomy of the brokenness. هر کسی از زن خود شد یار من. everyone assumed that they know what I'm crying about, what my message is, what I have lost, what I'm going through. But they only assumed. Never once did anyone go to the reed bed, see how they cut us, how they force us into an environment that doesn't belong to us, how they make us into something that we are not. There was a movie, not a documentary, some years ago. It was called The Color of Fear. It was about, there were two Hispanic men, two Asian men, and three white men. And one of the African Americans said, you know, I work for this company. Every morning I wear my tie and I wear my suit and I go there. But on the way back, in my car as I'm driving home, I just remove the tie, remove my jacket, because I so desperately just want to be black again. To know who you are and to know what you are, and then realize you're in the wrong space. And you can't forget the fact that you're in the wrong space. And it shatters your interior. So when you read Rumi, remember, the reed flute is about himself, about his gains, about his losses, about the fact that he wants to go home and be home, but he doesn't know where home is. And that's the story of the human condition. Listen, just in case some of you were disappointed in this class, I don't really blame you. I disappoint myself on a daily basis. If I've said anything that has offended you, well, grow a thicker skin. I apologize. Before you leave, let me just share with you this a wisdom tale that we have as a parting gift. In the Middle East, we have the saying that when you enter someone's house, you enter as a king or a queen. We become your subject. And those of you who've come to my house, you know, from the moment you enter into our place, we give you tea, we give you food, give you even clothes. And so you are treated with the greatest respects. But here's the thing you need to understand. When you enter into our home, you enter, it's true, as a king, but also as a slave. You can't ask for things that are not offered to you. If I give you tea, don't ask for coffee. Don't ask for water. Just drink the goddamn tea and shut your mouth. That makes you a slave. When you leave as a poet. Because then you can go to your friends and your family and tell them how you were treated. I know for some of you, 6 to 9 is a long time, and I have no doubt that I exhausted some of you. But I try to give you ideas that I thought to be most interesting and most exciting and inspiring. I'm sure I failed in many ways, but I did my best. I know some of you wanted to perhaps ask certain types of questions, but you're a slave when you're staying in this class. You can only ask questions that I enjoy. You can leave when I tell you to leave, and you can sit in certain areas of the classroom that I like you to sit. This is their last night, and you leave as poets. I'm not sure what you have gained from this class. I hope something that makes your world of ideas a little bit more richer, more interesting. So thank you. If you need a letter of recommendation, send me a note, email. I will do my best to write a crappy one for you. I teach classes next semester in person as well as online. If you have enjoyed what you've heard thus far, do sign up. Should you choose not to, it's okay. I'll figure out where you live. I teach this class again next summer, if I'm still alive. Should you be bored and around, come by, pay a visit. Just in case you get a grade you don't like, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. No one's going to really look at your transcripts. And it's only college, it doesn't mean anything. So take care. Thank you for just sitting there listening respectfully. My apologies for having offended many of your sensibilities. Thank you for being kind enough to bring food. So please, come up, help yourself. Thank you, come on. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Actually, just one more question.
Yeah.
The map of life that